The alarm's going off, man. Stop hitting snooze. I need you. If you're looking to feel like warm and fuzzy inside, like I'm your guy. So they're in my top 20 EHL teams for sure. There's emotion, there's hatred. This is not like a very friendly series. It's like SpongeBob when he's got like the napkin and like the potato chip. Like that's how I feel. Listen, Colson, I didn't have fun. Everything in my body hurts right now. The team that has the lead in the second period is just not going to win that game. There's no need for air quotes. He's tardy all the time. It's the American thing to do. I was alive, just not buried. No, don't get pucks deep. Hang on to the puck. Pass the puck. Shoot the puck. Are we live? Are we live? We're having a good time. JKP, baby. JKP.
Hello, Isho, and welcome into another installment of our off-season Coaches Edition podcast today for the Pennsylvania Huntsmen, their new coach to the franchise, Zac Desjardins. We thank you for joining us here.
Thanks, Jake. I'm excited for this one.
First time on the Isho. I'm sure it's been a busy off-season. How's everything been? And we appreciate you squeezing us in here. I'm sure it's a hectic time right now.
Yeah, it's a hectic time. I think it's a hectic time for everybody, and it's just getting ramped up. I know a lot of the guys, if you talk to them, they're ready to go, and just not the coaches, because for coaches this isn't the fun time. Getting on the ice and being with the boys is the best part, not trying to make 50 phone calls a day and just trying to find guys. But I'm excited for the new year.
Yeah, I think once August hits, everybody's kind of eager to get on the ice at this point. Like the off season's winding down, the prep is done. Like this is the time where you're getting antsy.
Yeah, oh, for sure. And this is, I want to see, what this league's all about. Like this has been a good thing for me to come over. I mean, I've always coached out maybe further out west. But I've done a lot of showcases and met a lot of guys from the EHL and the P, and I know a lot of those guys, and it's going to be exciting to coach against some of them. And I've met Neil for many years, and just to get to see how the league is run right now is amazing. Like the communication and just everything that the league does is good.
Yeah, I agree completely. Can't say enough good things about Neil. So how did this position end up on your radar, and were there things about the Huntsmen specifically that appealed to you?
Well, it was a random thing. I was actually at a showcase in Denver that I've been help running for the last 20. No, that one's not 20 years. Sorry, 15 years. CCM showcase out there, and I was standing there talking to a buddy, and he was asking, "Hey, what are you doing next year?" And I said, "I'm looking for a job." And then all of a sudden, it spread like wildfire. And then Eric Purgeon came up to me and was like, "Hey, I actually just took a job. Would you be interested?" And I'm like, "Sure, I'll talk to anybody." So Zac came into town the next day, and we sat and talked for about 45 minutes to an hour at the camp. So at showcase, sorry, and then it just went from there. They offered me, and it took a little while. I'll say I was a little hesitant just because of previous endeavor. And I was looking at some other things too, because I had a lot with the family and stuff like that to make sure everything was good. So it took a little while of me and Zac going back and forth, talking throughout the off season, seeing each other at some other showcases. But it wasn't like all we talked to was business. We talked about other things, and I think that made me feel a lot more comfortable coming to the Huntsmen and just how they run their organization.
Yeah, I agree completely. Zac is one of the best for sure. And as far as the EHL goes, you said you've known some of the coaches, known Neil. Just what level of familiarity did you have, with the league, what it's known for, and that kind of thing?
Well, I think I can't say I know a lot about it because I don't know. I guess I'm a different, maybe more old school coach. I focus at where I'm at that time. So like I said, being from the old Western States League days, the NA3, I was more focused on those leagues. And I never said bad things about the EHL or anything else. But I know from the past, and like I said, these other guys, just the history that they have of moving players on to that next level. There's no lies. There's not like, oh yeah, we moved one on, but it was like 50. But, I think the EHL does a great job of promoting their players and getting things going. And they don't want it to be crazy. Like I think sometimes leagues get so hyped up about, oh, we have teams, we have all these players, but what are you really doing with them? And so far, just doing a little bit more digging and talking to the guys, it's amazing on how many guys actually do move on to that next level.
Yeah, absolutely. Another year of that as well. And Huntsman moved on a few. And as we talked about, you mentioned your general manager, Zach Overholtzer. In the press release where he announced you as the next head coach, he mentioned that, culture is the most important thing at the Pennsylvania Huntsmen. So, how do you see yourself fitting into what's already been established there as well as adding to it?
I think they have a great culture there. I think, like I said earlier, Jake, is getting to know who I'm going to be working with a little bit more. Um, and I think talking to Zach and Ryan Bertelson, just talking to those guys, just what they're doing is just amazing. It's not just about the E team, it's about the P team, the 18 team, and making everybody feel a part of it. I know some teams, they'll say it but don't mean it. And that's in every league and at every level. I think even my short stint in pro hockey, like I felt the same things, or you see the same things where, oh yeah, we're part of this, but you aren't. And with the Huntsmen, I think that culture of everybody being one definitely helps out and makes it a good place, fun environment to be at, to play. And that culture is going to be just work hard, enjoy it, and you got to earn what you get. So.
100%. The proof is in the pudding for the Huntsmen, who have already made, a habit of elevating guys from P to E in just, the 3 years that their franchise has existed in the EHL. Multiple now have moved on to the NCAA level. So, how do you, when you're dealing with players that, obviously 2 levels within the junior program, how do you see yourself helping continue that trend of elevating guys within the organization?
Well, I think the one thing I'm going to try to do my best of is to be on the ice as much as I possibly can with both groups, and be with the P team and show them that it's not just about me being with the E guys and work with those guys. And I think and vice versa, I want those guys to be with the E guys as well, because then they get that experience of moving on, and getting those challenges and getting that confidence, like that the coach believes in them. And I think for our players at the EHL level, it's a huge thing, because now they sort of get in that role of teaching and learning something of like, hey, just because I am the best or I'm at a better level doesn't mean I can't help out somebody. So I think if you can get that family oriented type thing going on, it's like everybody's boosting each other. So I think that's what I want to instill in the guys. Like, hey, we're here to work hard. Everybody's here to get better. This guy may be younger, but he's going to push you, because you're going to be like, oh man, this guy catch me next year, or who knows. So
Yeah, absolutely. And on the ice, what would you say that your, style of coaching is?
I think my style of coaching is very I'm more like a teacher. I'm not a guy who is going to be like, oh, let's watch, I'm more of a hands-on guy. Like, I love doing video to a point, but I think you see it on the ice. So, when we're working on our systems, it's going to be a lot of stopping in practice, and sort of just the small little details of everything. I'm not making the guys be robots. I let them think. I know that, this is the fastest game in the world. I feel that a player gets to play in any sport, and it's always changing. So you got to read and teach. But I think some of the small details will help those guys be a lot better in the future.
And being a defenseman yourself, when you played, do you think that position has influenced your coaching style at all?
Well, I'll say I was a different defenseman than today's world. Obviously being a big guy. When I was playing, I was 6'4", playing at like 205. Obviously I had a different role as well. But I think the game's changed. So even if you say you were a defenseman or you're a forward, when you played, the game's changed so much. So I think I do focus maybe a little bit more on the defensive side of it, because I think if you have great defense, the offense just comes, and you can't hinder anybody playing offense. But if you can teach them just the basics of defense, I mean, I think if you look in the NHL, you look at a guy like Ovechkin. When he first came to the league, he couldn't play defense, and first couple of years it was a little rough. But now look at what he's done, just because he's had defense to capitalize on some opportunities on the offensive zone. So.
In your opinion, what are some of the ways that the role of a defenseman has emerged? Because I think, perhaps nowadays, you're looking more for defensemen that can do a little bit of everything than just, maybe a single role.
Yeah, I think the game has changed. I mean, you even look. I mean, obviously, you talk to any kids today, who's the best defenseman in the league, Cal McCarr, and it's because he does some amazing things on the offensive side of the puck. But if you really study the game, he's unbelievable defensively. Like, he's out there collecting big minutes. I look at a guy. I was just watching a video before we got on of Bernsey when he just made the move to Colorado now. But like, I look at him, and he's a big guy, but you see that he's on the power play. He's a shutdown defenseman, but he's on the power play because he's making simple plays. So I think the game position for a defenseman's changed a lot, where you can be that shutdown guy, but you have to have some offense in you. You have to have a good shot, maybe good footwork, but you got to be able to move and read the play and be that third, fourth wave. Now, on the flip side, forwards are now going to have to learn how to skate backwards a little bit better. So I think in my practices, there'll be a lot of skating, switching it up where D are playing up and forwards are playing back. And just so you know the basic reading of the game, if you get stuck on the point, or if a defenseman does lead the rush, well, I was told as soon as I get to the top of the circles, just shoot. Well, not in today's game. You get to roll in, and maybe you play a little low, learn the forecheck a little bit on the forward side of it. So if you do get stuck, you know where you're going and not out of position.
So the defensemen get to have a little more fun, and the forwards have to do a little bit.
Yeah, they get to learn. Hey, I can't blame that guy for everything. So
yeah. And when you're out there recruiting, now for this level, what are some things that you look for when you're evaluating a player both on and off the ice?
I think I try to watch him as much as possible. I mean, I think it's tough when you do all these showcases because you get to watch a guy. There's multiple rinks going on at a time, and you got to watch a kid, and you hopefully you see him at his best. But I try to watch them at their worst, like at these showcases and events that you go to. I want to see how they react when something doesn't go their way. When everything's going good, it's great. I was just watching the Netflix series Quarterbacks. They're talking about when you're winning. Jared Goff was talking about when he's winning everything, you don't notice how bad everything's could be. And when you lose, you're like, oh, I got to reevaluate stuff. So I like watching the guys when they have to struggle a little bit. And then the effort that they give, because if you're winning, your effort's always, it looks good, right? But if you're down, how do you battle back? How do you battle? And that's what I like in players. I've never been like, oh, that guy's a horrible skater, I'm not taking him. But yet he's a +5 as a defenseman. He's getting stuff done, right? So I always look at their battle and their compete on the ice.
And getting into your background, your career a bit, you obviously spend a lot of time working with older players at the professional level. It's different. So are there things, about their game, things they focus on, especially, on the little details side that you'll try to bring to the table with, Pennsylvania this year?
Yeah, I think it is. I think the hugest thing is that, even at the ECHL level, you're still teaching, right? You're still teaching them proper systems and a little bit of reading, them it's easier at that level. You sort of talk about it and they understand, right? Or show a quick video. Where at this level, I think you have to go a little bit into a little bit more detail and spend more than 15 minutes on it. Like, you have to walk guys through it. So but I think the huge thing that I want to tell these guys is, like, there's always a next shift. You know what I mean? Everybody worries about right now. And I think as I've coached at different levels, I'm always finding out that players always want that instant gratification right now in today's game, where when there's a bigger picture, you'll see it. You know what I mean? You don't win the game in the first 2 minutes of the game. You win it in the last 2 minutes of the game. So I feel that's something that these players at this level need to learn is it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And that's the biggest thing I think some guys don't understand. It's like, oh, we're down by 2 goals in the first 5 minutes, we're done. No, there's another 55 minutes to go. So that would be something. And then, the one thing I always find too is the recovery after games. Like, everybody gets all hyped up and warmed up before games, but I think how your post game activities affect you the next day. And I didn't learn that till I was pro and watched a couple guys, and I could see in the locker room, well, these guys are doing this. These guys just get undressed, shower, and leave. And like, who's on the medical table the next day. It's those guys when the other guys are taking care of their bodies. And I think it's more of that type of stuff. I think guys need to learn as well at this level.
I like that a lot. Definitely some interesting stuff. And, part of your background as well is the United States Junior Development Program, which you told me a little bit about before this. So that's a summer thing. So, working with fellow high-level coaches, how have those experiences kind of influenced, the way you do things in season?
I think it's been great. Been doing that camp for 25 plus years, and just the guys I've got to meet, you know, they've taught me so much because when I was younger, I started off when I was doing it when I was 20, and I was just a pusher. But just I don't know why that one was tough, but
It's not an easy one. I don't blame you.
it's not an easy one to go back to back like that. So, but just learning a little bit more about the game from those guys. Like we've had guys that have been assistant coaches in the NHL and D1 coaches and stuff like that, and just learning how they get their points across where it's changed and morphed into a different way of hockey. Like I remember we had some guys, and I played for some guys that would yell, and I'd have a visor on and it'd be covered with spit, and nowadays that's not how it is. So I've learned from those guys just how the game's always changing. And even those guys, you look at them, they're like, oh man, you're an assistant coach, you made it to the NHL, you made D1. And the first thing they always tell me is like they don't have all the answers. You know what I mean? And so the game's always changing. So I think that's the biggest thing I've always learned is that you have to change with the game. Systems and stuff like that are the same, but maybe you're not as aggressive on the D zone. You're giving the guys a little bit more freedom because then they get the freedom in the offensive zone. So I think that's the hugest thing I learned from those guys is that remember the game's always changing and you have to change with it.
So given earlier that you said, you're more of a teacher when you're on the ice coaching, do you credit, the years that you spent with those guys and in that summer program as influencing that in terms of the game changing?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think I learned a lot from those guys because it's, you can let a guy go. And, I know everybody's like, oh, just let him play it out, see how it goes. Well, it's not just for them right then because that the other guy's next in line or they're going to do the same thing because they're watching somebody else do it. So if you can stop some of the small stuff and then it doesn't get as out of control later on in practice or in the game. So, and you always got to mix it up. You teach them to do it when they're fresh and they understand it. And then later on in the season, you're doing it like challenging them when they're tired because now they have to mentally think just like they do in a game. So I think learning from those guys, like I said, was just huge because, I always had guys as coaches that just push you, and just yelled. And I did well. Like, I think there's some guys that you can do that with, but the majority of the time it's now you have to teach and get these guys to see what the next level's like. Don't train them for this level, train them for the next level.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing. And, even when I was in minor pro was, we're not teaching them how to be at this level. Yeah, some guys are going to be minor pro guys for life, but some of those guys you're trying to get back to the A or to the NHL. And it's like, we have to teach them for that level, not this level. So I always try to do that is try to give them some of these small techniques for the next level, not what's going to make them amazing at this level, which it does.
I think that's the name of the game too. Like, I mean, we're this league is all about matriculation, right? Whether it's P to E and then ultimately E to NCAA, like that's kind of bread and butter.
It is. So, I mean, I think that's where, like I said, the players need to learn that, it's not about this period or this shift. It's how it's at the end. And then it's not the first game. It's how the last game goes. You know what I mean? And making it to the playoffs and stuff like that.
And you've been involved in junior hockey as early as 2007. So, this obviously everybody talks about junior hockey right now is definitely a pretty messy situation. And, every league has been hit by it to some degree. So, what are some of the big changes you've seen, at this level of hockey?
I think the biggest change I've seen is that there's so many players, so many good players out there. That are getting the opportunities. I remember when I first started, you'd be like, oh man, this kid deserves it, but I just got no space, or, there's not another team for it. So I agree to a point. I love that there's so many teams and, players are getting the opportunities, but, I also look at the other side of it as, maybe there is too many opportunities and the players are, just being expected, oh, I expect to be at this level instead of some of the earning of it. And I think that's the tough thing. Um, but I feel that, the biggest thing that's changed is, like I said, with the D and the forwards is the skill. I think it's a little bit faster. The guys are a little bit more focused on themselves, their body, and how they play. Back like when I played, or when I first started getting into coaching, it was just like I'm just gonna grunt through it and I'll just go through a wall. And now these guys are thinking, hey, I got to take care of my body, got to do this, and it's definitely become a faster sport, I think, overall. And it's not just like, oh, 3 guys on the ice used to be fast on a team. Now it's you've got 10 to 12 guys that can go up and down the ice pretty well.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the competitiveness at the NCAA level for spots, being essentially at a premium right now, what advice do you give to a player in terms of making themselves be able to separate themselves from the pack? Obviously, with how saturated things are in terms of players and teams.
I think the biggest thing in talking to some of the coaches at the NCAA that I consider friends and stuff like that, I think players now gotta find something more than just one skill to separate themselves. I think if you're a goal scorer, yeah, you can score goals, but can you win a draw? Are you strong on the walls? Like I think now players are gonna have to learn more than just one skill and be good at it. I mean, I think one of the biggest ones I always tell players, young players to look at is Patrick Marleau. I mean, 20 plus years in the NHL.
Yeah.
When he first came in, and I think even another one that's come up is a little bit of like a Joe Thornton type player. Like when they first started off in the league, they were expected to be goal scorers and their speed and they're going. But then you look at like especially Marleau, I feel like you look at him at the end of his career, he was able to stay on so long because he mastered being a centerman that won draws in key situations. He became more of a defensive player, so he wasn't a liability. So instead of switching, staying offensive, and he put up a couple goals, but he became stronger defensively. So I think players in today's game need to add 2 or 3 things to their belt instead of just being, oh, I can shoot the puck. Well, that's nice, but so can everybody else that's trying for that one spot you're going for. So if you can add that 2 or 3 extra tools to your belt, then I think you'll have a better chance of making that next level.
And do you think the competitiveness has made, a coach's role in more or less influential in the commitment process? Do you feel it's more on the player now, separate themselves, or do coaches still have that same, influence on the process?
I think the coaches still have that influence. I mean, because we see it as a different, from a different angle, right? I mean, I think some players are like, you watch a game and you win, and the player's like, oh, I had a great game, or you lose, I wasn't that bad. But like when you sit back and evaluate it, and you see that, as a coach, we see things on a bigger picture, and we also know the communication with the guys at the next level in the NCAA that this is what they're looking for. So because I think sometimes the players get it from secondhand or third hand, you know what I mean? Like from another buddy, oh, just work on this, you'll be on our team. Well, the coaches are looking for this, and this, not just this, you know what I mean? So I think coaches are still there to guide the guys. I mean, I think the player's skill is obviously immense, but I think them being honest, and I think as coaches, we have to be honest with the players and say, this is what this team's looking for. Are you that or no? I know you want to go there, but we have to guide them still and help them out with that next step.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's all like you see so many teams out there, and it's just about gathering people, not necessarily doing the right service by the players, putting them in the right position, things like that.
Yeah. And and I think it's the hugest thing is, everybody their goal is maybe 1 or 2 schools, and it's like, okay, they have great hockey, but you're also going for the education part of it. So do they have something like no use going to an engineering school if you want to be, a teacher, you know what I mean? Like, so I think it's just helping players realize their goals and how we can go about reaching them. And it's not always the A direction. It might be B or C. That might be the right one to go down.
Yeah, for sure. And to wrap things up, we'll shift our focus a bit on the upcoming season with the Huntsmen. So last year was the Huntsmen's first playoff berth at the EHL level. Where do you set the bar for this year in terms of the on ice performance for the team?
I mean, I think there's nothing to try to go lower than that. I think that expectation's still there to make the playoffs, and obviously you want to build better. To prove that last year just wasn't a fluke for this organization. And I think talking to Zac and some of the players that are coming back, it's they still have that goal. They felt empty a little bit losing, and they want to keep going. So it's good to see that those guys in the organization aren't just like, oh well, hopefully we have a good year. No, they want the same thing, and that's a little bit of the pressure that they're throwing at me is, we can't be happy with just an okay season. Like, they want to keep it going, and I think this being still their early years of an organization, they still want to prove that they want to win. And I think moving forward for next year, it's even better if we can make the playoffs again, and especially with a new coach and me going back, that'll be easier for the recruiting and everything like that.
Yeah, and all directions have been positive for the Huntsmen so far in this league, and they've built a great reputation in just a few years. And for you, I'm sure you've talked to some players, obviously gotten to know them probably over the phone over the last couple months and stuff. But training camp right around the corner, everybody going to be in the same place at the same time. What are you looking to establish day one when you walk into the rink that day?
That it's going to be hard. I don't want it to be, just a cakewalk. Like, oh, this is just junior hockey. It's my second or third year playing. Like, I want them all to know that, we're all going hard, and it's not going to be, just an easy walk in the park. Like, we have to push each other to make everybody better. Not only do they push each other, but they got to push me to make myself better. You know what I mean? Like, hey, let's, instead of me having to go slow, let's go hard, and I can move faster at a different pace than I'm maybe used to. So I want the players to know that when they come in that we're going, and it's not just going to be, hey, let's get to know each other. We'll get to know each other through the battles that we have to go and the wars that we have to fight on the ice, and we'll do it that way. Not let's take a month or two to figure each other out. We'll do it as we go.
Yeah, get right into it. I love
it. Get right into it. Like, no use waiting, Yeah. So let's get into it, and let's strive to be better than we were the last shift. I think everybody says it now. It's just be 1% better, and I think that's what we need. We got to be better than last year, and every player should be better than last year.
100%. Well, Coach, we thank you for your time. We appreciate you sharing your thoughts on everything, and we're looking forward to getting to know you throughout the year and another year for the Huntsmen as well. So thank you again.
Oh, you're welcome, Jake. Anytime.
Thanks for listening to The E Show, presented by the Hockey Podcast Network. Learn more about us at easternhockeyleague.org and follow us on all of your favorite social media platforms. Also, be sure to subscribe and get notified when our next podcast episode is released.